Hello and welcome to my presentation on what I'll be doing for our 2.5D game as a programmer, VFX artist and UI designer. When using the premise of teleporting from one parallel world to the other, using already made concepts was the best idea for me, since a number of games have already explored this idea in totally different ways. Like Bioshock Infinite using travelling through time and space as a part of their story, or using Titanfall with their cause and effect mission, which uses a time travelling device that lets you travel through the same area but in two different time spots. Or even Gianna Sisters, which uses the concept of travelling through two parallel worlds like our game, but on either side one of the sisters is stuck on. Visually, Bioshock conveys this idea, showing the transition through a visible portal that shows you the difference between the area that you are and the area that you're about to go into. So in our game, I thought of using a portal to convey the other world and allow the player to see themselves in there. One of the things that I liked about Titanfall's cause and effect is the warping effect that happens whenever you transition through time. It helps with the jarring transition between one world and the other, so then the player doesn't just suddenly pop into existence. The only problem with this is a bit disorientating when transitioning and moving at the same time. So maybe lowering the effect when you're in the freely teleporting areas might be a good idea, since the player will be constantly moving and teleporting at the same time. These areas where you are limited to where you can teleport can be conveyed by low and high energy fields where the parallel worlds are aligned more, so then it kind of justifies the fact that you can teleport in some places more often and you can't in others. These areas can limit the player's ability to abuse this feature to get into areas where they're not supposed to be, and it means that bug fixing doesn't have to be as hectic because only certain areas could be freely transitioned, whereas other areas you can only transition through these said portals. When looking into making a 2.5D game, content like Cobra Code and Octopath Traveler's Project Spotlight guided me into using Unreal Engine as our game engine, since they say a lot of good things about Unreal and how it assisted them into making games. Things like Square Enix programmers talking about Unreal Engine's useful tools and editing features to help them create parts of the game, or even the Blueprint programming system to help them optimize code. Additionally, things like AI templates that help them create AI enemies and AI NPCs for Octopath, or the editing tools to allow them to edit the parameters of enemies to easily tune each enemy individually. When looking at guiding tutorials on how to develop a 2.5D game, Cobra Code has helped me understand on how to create all aspects from animation systems to combat to visual effects in 2.5D style. Plugins like PaperZ being one of the main reasons why Unreal Engine's capable of making 2D AI. When looking into VFX for our game, my biggest inspiration was Octopath Travelers, since they are a very high rated 2.5D game. So when looking into the videos of the development, I found a video of the developers talking about how they went around developing the VFX, mentioning things like using simultaneous lighting to add impact to glowing VFX and adding detail to the 2.5D style. Also using high-res concepts for the VFX instead of using the pixel art which everything else is made out of. As you can see on the right, I have 3 concept arts of my VFX ideas. The first is a magical shield that allows the player to deflect projectiles that are heading towards them. However, to achieve this, You have to block when the projectile is nearest towards you, like a parry. The next one is a more ambitious effect of an electric gun that arcs lightning towards enemies. This could be achieved through using an electrical beam effect that heads towards a set target, which can be programmed to head towards enemies. The final is a simple laser effect that shoots a laser and burns the surface of objects. This scorch mark can be used by using decals on the hit areas of the laser. When looking into the UI, 3 important pieces of information should be shown. Health, energy to show the ability to transport through worlds, and maybe an indicator on if the player is in an area where they can freely transport or if they're in an area where they have to look for a portal. One thing I wanted to make sure is there isn't any unnecessary amount of information on the player's screen at once. So games like Mario and Giana Sister show the ideal amount of information that the UI should be presenting, and in their cases it only shows the health and the points, but in our case we need to show energy and health and maybe the indicator. So since the game only needs to convey a small amount of information, we won't need an overwhelming amount of UI. Like for example, this custom UI used in World of Warcraft. And here's some concept art that I've used, with the first one being more stylized and then the second one being more simple. These are both in the idea of old-fashioned RPG games. Here's my references for all the videos and images that I use throughout this presentation. Thanks for watching. Have you got any questions?